What is happening on this Thursday night? Thanks for joining us. I appreciate every single one of you here ready to hang out on a Thursday, crafts and kickoffs. Of course, my first question, as always, to you on Thursday night is, what are you drinking? What are you drinking right now on this Thursday? Throw your comments in. Let me know what you are enjoying as you watch this podcast, as we break down what's happening in the NFL throughout the league. We'll look at the coaching circle, carousel, whichever you want to call it. We'll talk about the divisional round, what happened in the playoffs last weekend. We'll take a look at Lamar Jackson and the discourse around Jackson and what he's been up to in the postseason. We'll also obviously preview the NFC Championship game and AFC Championship game. All of that will be happening in just mere moments. First, I will tell you what I'm drinking. I am drinking a Michael, which is a Polish Pilsner from Shoveltown Brewery. It is a 5.8% ABV. It is a very good beer. I actually went to Shoveltown last Friday night with Kelly, and we enjoyed ourselves, hung out, had a great time. Let's take a look here. Vitalik says Mexican Coke. A Mexican Coke from Vitalix. I don't really know what that means. Is that literally Coca-Cola from Mexico? I'm not sure. Ryan Lee jumps in and says Tizer or Tizer for me. I don't know what that is either. I'm 0 for 2 right now. What are those two drinks? Give me more details. But here, cheers. As we start this Thursday night off right. Again, appreciate every single one of you. The Polish Pilsner, the Michael from Shoveltown Brewery. All right. Let's start with the head coach hirings. Let's start with the head coach rumors. We begin in Jacksonville. And man, oh man, what a freaking time happening down in Jacksonville right now. So earlier in the week, Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, also from Warwick, Rhode Island, and many of you know I am originally from Rhode Island. He did a great job with Tampa this year as the OC. A fantastic job as the offensive coordinator. Baker Mayfield played well. They lost Chris Godwin. They lost Mike Evans for a stretch. And Liam Cohen was terrific. He was absolutely terrific throughout this season. He was interviewing for the Jags job to be the head coach. He reportedly, earlier this week, pulled out of that. Said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go back to Tampa. He went back to Tampa. Tampa was going to pay him a lot more money as the offensive coordinator, bump his contract up, all that good stuff. So Cohen pulled out of the Jacksonville head coaching search earlier this week. After about a day or so, we find out that Jacksonville decided to fire Trent Baalke, who is their GM or was their GM. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, wanted to keep him, but then all of a sudden reversed course a day or two ago and decided to fire Baalke. So what do we find out now? Well, we find out literally about 45 minutes ago that Liam Cohen is back talking to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's having the conversation about the head coaching gig in Jacksonville. Liam Cohen played the ultimate game. He played the ultimate game. He called Jacksonville's bluff. Yeah, he wants to be an NFL head coach. Of course he wants to be an NFL head coach. He'd be fine coaching Trevor Lawrence and company. But he obviously did not want any part of Trent Baalke. And if you know about Baalke, you know why. He has failed at pretty much every stop. He's been terrible at drafting players. So the way this looks is that Liam Cohen went in for the interview, likely asked about Trent Baalke, what was going on. Jacksonville was going to stand by Baalke, and Liam Cohen called their bluff and said, all right, I'm out. I'm going back to Tampa Bay. Went back to Tampa Bay, had talks about his contract there, leaked out that Tampa Bay was going to give him a nice little raise, forced the hand of Jacksonville. Jacksonville, in turn, fires the GM, and now Liam Cohen looks like he's going to be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to get his payday. He's going to get the head coaching gig, and he's going to get a GM that he wants to work with. I mean, that is playing the game. Boss moves by Liam Cohen. So it looks like Cohen will be in Jacksonville. Of course, we had Mike Vrabel. That came out last week. Look, we didn't talk about it at the time. There was a lot to get to. I thought the Vrabel hiring for the Patriots was a great hire. I thought he was the most credible guy that was out there on the market. I thought he was the number one target. Reports would tell you that the New York Jets wanted him. Chicago went back to him to see if he was willing to talk before he agreed with the Patriots. Pretty much every team that was out there, the Raiders, Tom Brady reached out to him and he said, look, I'm going back to New England. So it was a fantastic hire, I thought, by the Patriots. He knows how to build the program. He will set the accountability for them. He makes the Patriots a serious program again. And you didn't want to risk, right, hiring another first-time guy after what happened with Gerard Mayo. So big move for the Patriots. Ben Johnson ends up in Chicago. We found that out earlier this week. And I've been talking about this the last 2 to 3 months. It was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious that Ben Johnson was going to make his way to the Chicago Bears, or at least Chicago was interested in Ben Johnson. I've been saying for the last couple of months that Chicago is going to go offense. It makes all the sense in the world to go offense. You've got Caleb Williams. You've got all those weapons. You want somebody to help develop Caleb Williams, to be that guy, right? So Chicago was going to go offense. They went offense with Ben Johnson. This is the best shot for Caleb Williams to be a franchise quarterback. If Caleb Williams can't succeed with Ben Johnson as his head coach and offensive play caller, that's a problem. And that is a Caleb Williams problem. So I think they got the right man for the job. They've got a lot of weapons. Like if you're Ben Johnson, you go in there, you've got Caleb at quarterback, you still have DJ Moore, you've got Rome Odunze, you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got Cole Kmet. You've got a lot of different pieces, very similar to the pieces that Ben Johnson had in Detroit, right? Very similar. You got the speed element. You got the possession element at wide receiver. You can go downfield. You've got the tight end that can catch the football and do a good job for you. You've got a running back that is explosive. And you just wonder, the big question about Ben Johnson is, can he build the program? We'll have to wait and see. Tremendous offensive coordinator, but can he build a program? We also had Aaron Glenn go to the New York Jets. It feels like Glenn was their second or third choice. They absolutely wanted Mike Vrabel first. Those are the reports. Mike Vrabel, of course, ends up in New England. So it feels like Aaron Glenn was at least the second choice. Ben Johnson wasn't necessarily interested in the New York Jets either. He's probably looking at the quarterback situation going, really? That's why I never fully bought into the Ben Johnson Raiders stuff, because the Raiders don't have a quarterback on that roster. They don't have a franchise guy. So it looks like the Jets got their second or third choice. Interesting, because he's a defensive head coach, and you don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is there. Is Aaron Rodgers going to stay? I have no idea. If Rodgers leaves, what do? You're going to bring back Sam Darnold? That ain't going to work. So I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. They have the 7th pick of the draft. Maybe they tried to trade up to draft a guy. But it's a very interesting dynamic where you've got the first-time head coach defensive mind without a go-to quarterback. And I think they need to be great. The Jets need to be great defensively, especially in that division. You've got to face Tua in that Miami offense. You've got to face Josh Allen. You've got to face the up-and-coming Drake May. They have to make sure that defensively they're as good as they can possibly be so they can compete within that AFC East. What else is going on? Well, Vegas reportedly is interested in Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll might be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll see if that's what indeed happens, but that'll be a very interesting fit. Carroll's like 75, 76 years old. Makes a little bit more sense, though, because, again, the Raiders don't have a quarterback right now. So you bring in Pete Carroll if that's going to be the move. He knows how to help run a program. I don't know if he would be Tom Brady's first choice, Mark Davis's first choice. So interesting to see what happens in Vegas if Pete Carroll is the guy. And then we finish it up with Dallas. Dallas, Jerry Jones. Man, oh, man, oh, man. Jerry Jones, we talked about it last week. He holds on to Mike McCarthy for no good reason. He starts the process late. I thought it would be, something where it's Kellen Moore, somebody he's used to, somebody that he has worked with. Well, now it sounds like it might not be Moore. It might be Brian Schottenheimer. And Schottenheimer's like 51 years old. I don't know how many people would be interested in Schottenheimer as a head coach outside of Jerry Jones. But there are reports saying that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are close to hiring Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach. And that is a very underwhelming to me. That is an incredibly underwhelming option for the Cowboys. I don't think anybody is going to be pumped and jacked in Dallas for Brian Schottenheimer. And if you got rid of Mike McCarthy when you could have gotten rid of him as soon as the season was over, you could have at least called Mike Vrabel. You could have at least called Ben Johnson. You could have called some of these guys, maybe Aaron Glenn. You could have had conversations with them, Liam Cohen. But instead, you took forever. You dragged your feet, and then you let Mike McCarthy go. And now it looks like you're going to hire somebody in Brian Schottenheimer that's not really desired around the league. But it's a perfect Jerry Jones move. We talked about this last week. Jerry Jones loves head coaches that he can pretty much control. Brian Schottenheimer has absolutely 0.0 pull. He's going to be told what to do by Jerry, and that's how it's going to work. So we'll see if Schottenheimer is indeed the hire down in Dallas, but that would be tremendously underwhelming. Tremendously underwhelming. All right, before we get to story number 4, don't forget to help us out here on this podcast. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs. That's how we build this community. That's how we build this algorithm, or at least use the algorithm to help build this channel up. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up and like the podcast, like this channel, like this video. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Zell Slayer about Liam Cohen says, boss move, great for him. Absolutely. Vitalix jumps in and lets me know with what he was drinking, which I was a little confused by the Mexican Coke. He said, yeah, big glass bottle of Coke made with cane sugar, not artificial sugar. Interesting. Very interesting. Ryan Lee drinking a British fizzy pop on this Thursday night, while Zach is drinking a Goose Island IPA, playing Madden, and watching the pod. Sounds like a hell of a night, Zach. Appreciate you, man. I'm drinking the Michael Polish Pilsner from Shoveltown Brewery. It's fantastic. 5.8 is the ABV. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 6,000 subscribers. That's the next goal, hopefully by NFL free agency. Let's get to story number 4. Let's quickly run through the divisional round and what happened. So Kansas City obviously beat the Houston Texans. The officiating was atrocious. Now, Chiefs fans might not agree with that. Chiefs fans might not like me saying that, but the officiating was atrocious, and the officiating was one-sided. It was one-sided. You had the 2 calls on Patrick Mahomes, which were bogus. You had the offside on the missed field goal that the officiating crew missed. And yes, I will give credit to Kansas City. They are finding ways to win. But if you're the NFL, you cannot have that kind of officiating performance in a playoff game. You just can't have it. You can't have that happen. And so that was frustrating to watch. You had Detroit versus Washington. Hell of a game. We talked about this game last week, right? And I said, get ready for a shootout. Both these teams are going to move the football up and down the field. They're going to make plays. You're going to have a bunch of explosives. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and that's precisely what it was. This was a shootout. Detroit had 521 yards, and they lost. They lost by a couple scores. 521 yards. They averaged 7.7 yards per play. The problem for Detroit, of course, was turning the football over. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 interceptions. Jamison Williams threw a pick. Ill-advised trick play. Bad timing for that from Ben Johnson. And Detroit finished with 5 turnovers. That's how they lost. Jaden Daniels was tremendous. 22 of 31, 299, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. He also ran the football 16 times for 51 yards. He did not turn the football over once. And you would absolutely say that Detroit's mash unit of a defense certainly helped Washington move the football, and certainly helped Jaden Daniels play as well as he did. That's not to take anything away from Washington. It's just Detroit had so many injuries. We also had Philly against the Rams. And, LA waited forever to run the hurry-up offense. They probably regret that. If they went to it earlier, they might have had more success. Cooper Kupp was MIA for most of the game. But the story was Philly's run game. The story was Saquon Barkley, as it's been all year long for the Eagles. 285 rushing yards for Philly. You're not going to beat Philadelphia if they run for almost 300 yards. It's just not going to happen. Jalen Hurts was mid. He's 15 of 20 for $128. Again, we saw the turnovers. LA was -2 in the turnover margin. And, you got to give it to the Rams. Unexpected great run for them. Their young defense continued to develop and make plays. A very promising team on that side of the football for the Rams moving forward. Fantastic job in the draft last couple of years, and they have quickly rebuilt that defense. So I think Rams fans are happy. They're obviously not happy losing to Philly, but you've got to be happy with this season that you put together because nobody anticipated the Rams getting to the playoffs, let alone making it to the divisional round. So thought it was a really good season for Sean McVay, but Philly moves on. All right, before we get to story number 3, I want to look at Baltimore at Buffalo last weekend, and I want to talk about Lamar Jackson. Lots of talk about Lamar Jackson. He can't get it done in the playoffs. The discourse, we know all about it. But let me take a sip of my Michael Polish Pilsner first from Shoveltown Brewery. Throw the comments in. Let me know what you're thinking. Zell Slayer jumps in. I think he's talking about the Patriots. Any offensive line coach news? Not yet. Nothing on the offensive line. Nothing about the wide receivers. Really not much coaching news for the Patriots today. So a couple of guys on the defensive side, but not much more than that. So I have not heard anything about the O-line just yet. All right. Let's jump to story number 3. Baltimore at Buffalo. And I want to talk about Lamar Jackson as well. How did Buffalo win? How did Buffalo win that football game? Total yards. Ravens 416 to 273. Josh Allen only threw for $127. He threw for less yards than Jalen Hurts did. James Cook averaged under 4 yards a carry. Derrick Henry, for whatever reason, only had 16 carries, which is just abominable. 5.2 yards per carry. He only got the football 16 times. That is an injustice. Derrick Henry should have had the football more against that Bills defense. So how did Buffalo win this game? Again, it's boring, it's cliched, but it's the truth. Turnovers. Baltimore was a -3. -3 on the turnover margin. So you go back. LA lost. They were a -2 in turnovers. You look at Detroit. Detroit was a -5 in turnovers. You look at Buffalo. Baltimore, -3 in turnovers. There's a theme, right? There's a theme. You turn the football over during the postseason, you're very likely to lose that football game. And that's what happened to Baltimore. They turned the ball over too often. Buffalo took care of it. Now, let me get to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is not the only reason the Ravens lost. Lamar had 2 turnovers. He had that terrible interception. Looked like a miscommunication, but it was a bad interception. And he had that bad fumble. So, yes, Lamar Jackson is absolutely 100% unequivocally part of why the Ravens lost that game. You can't say it otherwise. If you lost because you had 3 turnovers and Lamar had 2 of those 3 turnovers, he's part of the reason why. And he's a big part of the reason why. To go along with Mark Andrews, who had a horrendous fumble and an even worse drop on the 2-point conversion try that would have tied it. Now, I still think Josh Allen in Buffalo could move down the field. They had like $130 left. I think they could move down the field and win that game. But Andrews drops a 2-point conversion, game, set, match. It's not all on Lamar, right? It wasn't all on Lamar last year when Zay Flowers fumbled at the half-yard line. It's not all on Lamar. But here's what I will say about Lamar Jackson. This is where I'm at with Lamar Jackson as far as the playoffs and, can he prove it? Can he come up, when his team needs him to come up with a big moment in a big game? There is not a single, and I mean, there's not a single transcendent performance from Lamar Jackson in the postseason through his career. There is not a single transcendent performance. And he's a multiple-time MVP. He might be a 3-time MVP. And when you talk about somebody who's won multiple MVPs, you would hope that quarterback especially would give you at least one transcendent performance in the playoffs. One of those games that you look at and go, My God, do you remember that night? Do you remember that game that Lamar had? He hasn't done it in the postseason. He hasn't always been bad. He hasn't always been the reason why the Ravens lost. But he also has not been the reason why the Ravens have gotten to a Super Bowl. He's also not the reason that they've, haven't gotten further than they should have gotten, right? I mean, he is somebody who you can't blame everything on him, but he has not raised his level of play in the playoffs. And if Lamar Jackson raised his level of play in the postseason, this team would have already gotten to a Super Bowl. So again, it's not all on him. John Harbaugh, you can blame some on him. Again, the other night, you could look at last weekend, you could look at Mark Andrews, big reason why they lost that game. I'm talking about totality. Lamar Jackson's NFL career, he has yet to have that transcendent postseason performance. And I'm not going to say time is running out. He's still young. But I don't think it's crazy for people to look at Lamar Jackson and say, you need more from that guy. You need more from that guy in the biggest games. Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, he has a 3-5 record. 3-5 in the playoffs. His completion percentage is under 61%. He has 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but he also has lost 4 fumbles. Lamar Jackson, in his NFL career, has more turnovers than touchdowns in the playoffs. And he has completed less than 61% of his passes. That is not MVP-like. That is not what you expect. We talk about Lamar being one of the best quarterbacks in football. He has not been nearly good enough in the playoffs. Period. End of sentence. That's not an agenda. That's not a hot take. It's fact. When you're completing less than 61% of your passes and you have 11 turnovers to 10 touchdowns in your playoff career and you have a losing record at 3-5, yeah, you're not playing well enough. And until he plays really well consistently in the postseason, the questions are going to continue. Here's one more thing about Lamar Jackson. Did you know that Lamar Jackson has never won a playoff game with the opposition scoring more than 14 points? I'll say that one more time. Lamar Jackson has never won a playoff game when the opposing team has scored more than 14 points. So he just hasn't been good enough. All right. Before I get to story number 2, raise the drink. Enjoy yourself on a Thursday night, having a Michael Polish Pilsner from Shoveltown Brewery, 5.8 ABV. What are you drinking? Jess Dog says, what's happening? What's happening, Jess Dog? Evan, sup, gents, sup. We've got Tom. Greetings from Vienna, Austria. I love Tom's greetings from Vienna, Austria. I love those messages all around the world. Appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to let me know what you're drinking. All right, story number 2. Let's get to the NFC Championship game. Let's preview the NFC Championship game. We've got the Eagles against the Commanders. Interesting game, right? If you look at Jaden Daniels and what he's done against the Eagles this year, obviously division rival, so they've played, 2 games. They've played 2 games against each other. And when you look at the 2 games that Daniels has had against this Eagles defense, he's been pretty good. 64.79% completion, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks. His passer rating against Philly this year is 93. His last game was really good. 61.5% completion, not great, but he did throw for 258. He threw for 5 touchdowns. He threw 2 picks, but he threw 5 touchdowns, and he had this very dramatic end of game, right? The game-winning drive. Very dramatic. So Jaden Daniels has played fairly well against the Eagles. As a matter of fact, according to the Computer Cowboy on Twitter, Jaden Daniels has had the only effective game versus Philadelphia's defense from a quarterback since October. Philly's defense has been on a freaking heater. And the only guy that's played fairly well, if not well, against that Eagles defense has been Jaden Daniels. He's been terrific, and he's been tough all year long. Big questions about this game, though. NFC Championship game this weekend. The biggest question to me is Jalen Hurts. How healthy is he? He was listed as a full participant, but let's not forget that teams can kind of mess around with that. And, from some of the reports, it didn't look like Jalen Hurts was moving around great during practice. So how healthy is Jalen Hurts? If Jalen Hurts is not healthy, then that changes the entire game. He didn't look near 100% last week when he got hurt, right? When he got banged up. So how healthy is Jalen Hurts? The second big thing about this game is Saquon Barkley and whether or not Washington can slow down Saquon Barkley. Washington is 26th in run defense when you look at the DVOA analytic. Washington has one of the worst run defenses in football. And if you look at what's happened in the prior matchups this season, Saquon Barkley has ripped apart. He has ripped apart this Washington defense. In the 2 games in the regular season that Barkley played against the Commanders, Saquon Barkley ran for 296 yards. He ran, I think it was for 151 game, and then the other game he ran for 146. So it's not the type of situation where Saquon ran for like 200 yards in a game and then he ran for 96. No. For all intents and purposes, he went $150 against the Commanders this year. He scored 4 touchdowns, 2-2. So if you go off that, as we get ready for the NFC Championship game, if Saquon and Philly runs the football like they did against Washington in the regular season, you can write down Saquon Barkley for 150 rushing yards and a couple of touchdowns on Sunday. And if Saquon Barkley runs for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, Washington is going to have a very difficult time winning that football game. They have to limit Barkley. They've gotten a little bit healthier on the defensive line, but their run defense hasn't been great, and Saquon has ripped them to shreds. Got to be better on Sunday. Who wins in the trenches? Philadelphia's defensive line is tough. Philadelphia's offensive line is tough. You got Philly's offensive line, which is one of the best offensive lines in football, going against a Washington defensive line that has lots of talent. Washington's offensive line has been one of the better offensive lines in football as well. And we know about Philadelphia and the talent they have up front defensively, Jalen Carter and company. So the trenches, right? Both offensive lines have been very good. Who wins the battle in the trenches? It sounds like old school football, but really that's what's going to come down to. Can you slow down Saquon Barkley? And which of the D lines and O lines play better? That's going to be the difference. All right. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up before I get to story number 1, which of course is going to be the AFC Championship game preview. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up and like this podcast on YouTube as you watch. Helps us with the algorithm. Don't forget to throw a comment in as well. Always appreciate the comments. And subscribe. Trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by free agency, which is early to mid-March. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to have a drink. All right. Story number 1. Bills at the Chiefs. The AFC Championship game. The AFC Championship game. I want to ask you, who do you think is going to win this football game? Are the Kansas City Chiefs going to be, yet again, playing in the Super Bowl? Chiefs or Bills? Who you got? Throw a comment in. Allen versus Mahomes. We've seen this so many times. It has not gotten old, though. 2 of the best quarterbacks in football. And, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see the difference of these quarterbacks regular season to postseason. What am I talking about? When you look at the matchup, you look at Josh Allen, for example. Josh Allen in the regular season has torched Kansas City. Allen in the regular season His record is 4-1. He's won 4 of his 5 games against the Chiefs. He's thrown 10 touchdowns. He's thrown 3 interceptions. He's lost only 1 fumble. Josh Allen's passer rating against the Chiefs in the regular season is 94.5. Okay? But Josh Allen, when he plays this Kansas City defense in the playoffs, is a completely different animal. I'm going to compare the numbers for you. Allen regular season against Kansas City. Again, his record is 4-1. Allen against Kansas City in the postseason, his record is 0-3. Allen, when you look at what he's done, he's actually, thrown 7 touchdowns and only 1 pick, 0 fumbles lost. His rating is better in the postseason than it is in the regular season. So Josh Allen statistically has been better in the postseason, a completely different animal. He's been better in the postseason against the Chiefs, but he's 4-1 in the regular season against the Chiefs, and he's 0-3 against the Chiefs in the postseason. So what I'm telling you is Josh Allen has not beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. But that is not Josh Allen's fault. He's completing 66% of his passes, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He has 1 turnover in 3 games against the Chiefs in the playoffs. 1 turnover in 3 games. Passer rating above 100. How about Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes, regular season against Buffalo. His record is 1-4. Mahomes against Buffalo in the regular season has thrown 10 touchdowns, but he's turned the football over 8 times. 10 touchdowns, but he's thrown 7 picks, and he's lost a fumble. Patrick Mahomes, his passer rating against the Bills in the regular season in his career is under 86, 85.9. But here's the problem, and here's why Josh Allen has not been able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. It's because Patrick Mahomes in the postseason has eviscerated the Buffalo Bills defense. Patrick Mahomes has been absolutely freaking ridiculous against this Buffalo defense in the playoffs. Mahomes, let's compare. Mahomes in the regular season, 1-4 against Buffalo. In the postseason, he's 3-0. He's undefeated. His completion percentage in the regular season is 64.8%. His completion percentage in the postseason is over 75%. He's played 3 games in the playoffs against the Bills. He has 8 touchdowns compared to 10 touchdowns in 5 games in the regular season against Sean McDermott and his defense. And here's the biggest difference. Patrick Mahomes in the regular season against Buffalo has turned the ball over 8 times, 7 picks and 1 fumble. Patrick Mahomes does not have a single turnover in the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. Patrick Mahomes, when you look at his passer rating, regular season Mahomes against Buffalo, his passer rating is 85.9. His passer rating in the playoffs against Buffalo jumps exponentially. His passer rating against Buffalo in the postseason is 126.6. Patrick Mahomes, here's the gist. Josh Allen has upped his level of play from the regular season to the postseason when he's playing Kansas City. But unfortunately for Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes has also upped his play from the regular season to the postseason against Buffalo. And Patrick Mahomes has made such a leap from regular season Patrick to postseason Patrick. That leap has been so significant that Josh Allen has not won a football game against Kansas City when it's mattered the most. A 126.6 passer rating, 8 touchdowns, not a single turnover. Patrick Mahomes has turned it up against Buffalo when the games are their most important. That's been the difference. Both quarterbacks have played really well in the postseason. Patrick Mahomes has been a robot, which begs the question. Is Sean McDermott going to change anything? Is he going to change his approach? Is he going to be more aggressive against Mahomes this time around? We'll have to wait and see. And of course, you've got to ask the question, Will the officiating be a problem? Again, will Mahomes buy a call or two that changes the nature of this football game? Should be a great, great game. Ricky says, KC will need Allen to turn back into the stupid cowboy. I don't expect that. I think Josh is ready. Bills. So Ricky has the Bills. Archie has the Bills with a check mark. Amy has the Bills. A lot of Bills fans in the chat tonight. Tom says, I hate the Chiefs, so the Bills must win. Zell says the Bills. Zach Cowart, lone man on the island so far, says the Chiefs. He's got the Kansas City Chiefs. It should be a fantastic game. Fantastic game. I don't know what and Mr. Snoopy says the Bills as well. I don't know what the Eagles game is going to look like because, again, I don't know the health of Jalen Hurts. But the Bills at the Chiefs, I will be very disappointed if it's not a great game. The Michael, it's a Polish Pilsner. It's a 5.8 ABV. Shoveltown Brewery happens to make it, and it's very good. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Those three things help out this YouTube channel. Helps us drive that algorithm here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by NFL free agency, which I believe is March 12th. Everybody enjoy your Thursday night. We are done for this week. We'll be back next week at 7 p.m. If you're a Patriots fan, I do a Patriots podcast. That will happen tomorrow at 3 right here on YouTube at this channel. Enjoy the rest of the night. Enjoy your drinks and enjoy the football this weekend. We'll talk to you next time. This has been Crafts and Kickoffs.